You're listening to Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec. I'm Cameron Walters, the application security and DevSecOps builder trying to automate the world. With me is Kurt Hendel, a battle-tested security architect with a zero-trust worldview. We turn real-world security chaos into conversations that actually matter. So grab your cup of coffee and let's travel back in time to the original recording. Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec starts now. And we're live. Another podcast, another here. Back again. I'm ready. I'm caffeinated. I'm excited. I got, two of the favorite people I know here. This is a 3-parter podcast.
Favorites. I love that.
My favorites.
It's not just the usual suspects. We brought a friend again.
Yeah, we brought a friend. So thank you for coming to Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec. We have an interesting episode. This might be a double, a dual feature, and that we'll release 2 episodes in 1 week. Ooh. It's a good time. We're going to be talking about Google versus FFmpeg, and the title, I think the running title right now is the Open Source Sustainability Crisis. Words are hard.
Talking too much today.
I know, talking too much. I have Kurt, the man, again, the myth, the legend, the guy who builds amazing, crazy planes in cybersecurity world. Method thought, this is all theoretical because he just does it on paper, and instead of like diagrams for his architecture, it's just a plane. His goal is always to build a plane. He's like, can I build my architecture to look like a plane? He does this all the time. It's a crazy thing, but he's good at it.
I literally have no idea what you're talking about, and I can't wait to find out what you mean by make the architecture look like a plane.
Like when you draw out your architecture and you connect all the dots and you do the threat modeling and all that stuff. That's what he does, but he wants it to look like a plane. So when you look at it zoomed out, it's
like a paper airplane. Are we talking like a Boeing 747?
No, the Boeing 747
airplane.
That's right. Right. The network connections, they are crazy. Yeah, they make a plane.
Yeah, he's crazy here. So, and then I brought in my good friend. I think very highly of him. I had Blake here with us. Blake, introduce yourself. Tell us why you're here, or whatever you want to say. Or you can be like, why am I here? I'm lost. How did I end up here?
Yeah, I'm Blake. I'm happy to know that Cameron considers me a friend. I've always wanted friends, so this is a really big day for me.
I'll be your friend.
Don't push it.
Hey, so I
already am.
Don't push it.
Oh, man. Who knew you could make friends just by podcasting? Did you know that was a thing? Most of my career has been in the software engineering side of things. The last couple of years, I have been in application security, which is probably why I'm here.
Join the dark side.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did.
You don't want to drop planes? Come on now.
Yeah, I could. My dad used to have a plane, so I know what they look like. So,
all right,
probably qualified. Yeah,
halfway there.
But anyway, guys, I'm happy to be here. My degree was in information security with an emphasis in cybersecurity. At the time I was in college, it was the only security related degree that the university had. And so I picked it. And now I'm kind of getting back to those roots, but things have changed quite a bit. The core concepts are still the same though.
Welcome. Well, I'm excited to have you here. I know we chatted a little about this topic, at least. It's definitely a passionate one. I think there's a lot of big strings, especially from whenever the OWASP episode airs and the SPBS airs, those 2 episodes from this podcast. They talk about kind of this whole supply chain issue and kind of one of the core things, which is bringing us here today around FFmpeg and kind of what's happening within the industry, right? But before we jump into the real fun and the why we're here, Blake, what coffee are you drinking?
Oh, okay. So it is a local roaster. It's called Cafe Ibis, and I don't know why they call themselves Cafe Ibis. They only have one cafe, but they have roasters all over the state. And I'm drinking a blend called. I even took a picture of it so I didn't mess it up. But it's called Moab Trail, Utah themed, Moab, Utah. But yeah, it's a blend of Arabica beans from Central America. It's one of my go-tos. I just love it.
Is it like a medium roast?
It's a blend. It's a medium roast with blended in some light medium roast stuff.
Interesting.
So yeah,
sounds delicious. Kurt,
it's very good.
All right, I switched it up. So I've already had a couple of cups of coffee today, so I had to lighten it up. And I have a latte, but it's with medium roast beans. I think it's still my blue bottle beans. I don't know. They're all mixed up in the coffee machine hopper because it's one of those things. It grinds the beans and it makes the coffee, but it's still balanced, still plenty caffeinated. If I keep drinking this, I might end up over caffeinated like I usually do, but we're going to have fun like usual.
It's okay. Those plain drawings are just going to be a little more crooked. That's fine. Maybe a little more erratic because you'll be shaking.
Wavy lines. It'll look like it's flying. Come on.
There you go. Perfect. Well, I'm drinking because I've run out of the fun, awesome drinks I went and bought. I gotta go buy more. So I'm just having my normal Kirkland, Costco French roast, cold brew that we make. But my wife makes the pumpkin spice syrup, and she actually puts pumpkin puree in it. So I have a pumpkin spice puree syrup thing in there. It's delicious, but I also have it in my super fun cup, which is always a good time. And it's a bunny, so it's a great time. So,
well, fun fact.
Does your wife make the pumpkin puree itself as well? Okay,
no,
so she gets,
because then we'd have to.
But then she seasons it and spices it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. She just buys the cup, the can
like
stuff.
The can.
Yeah, the can. Yeah. So I don't know. If she had her way, she probably would, but then we'd have too much pumpkin, right? That's just too much pumpkin.
Yeah, my wife and I did that one time, and it tasted great, but it took so long to do that out of an actual pumpkin. And the next time we did it out of a can, it tasted basically the same. It was way easier. Yep. That's cool.
Taking shortcuts. Sometimes it works.
I don't know if it's a shortcut. It's just it's a strategic move, is what I'm saying.
You're just using scales of economy to do the hard part for you. Puree the pumpkin and put it in a can.
Sounds better when Blake says it.
Yeah.
That's fair. Alrighty, so let's jump into the meat of this, and I kind of want to first, as I always say, we have to define this so that my dad doesn't call me and ask me, what the heck were you talking about in your podcast? So today we're talking again around this FFmpeg, which boils down to open source. Blake, I don't know. I'm going to put you on the hot spot. Can you define and explain it to me like I'm 5, what open source is and why it's critical?
Explain it like you're 5. So open source software is software that software engineers write, and they publish the source code, basically the blueprints plus all of the building materials and all of the nails and all the tools you need. They publicly make that available so anybody can build that. And they release it for free under a bunch of different types of licenses so people can use those things in different ways. What that means to your average person that is not a tech person, your entire world runs on open source software. There's open source software on your many of people's phones, on your computers, on Windows. Linux runs many web servers. All of that's open source. You probably don't know a lot about that, but it runs a lot of the internet and a lot of the infrastructure that we have today.
Yeah. And it's usually voluntarily done, right? These are passion projects done by people. It's out there on the internet, right? Everyone thinks open source has security fairies. Maybe we do have a new fairy. When we get into the meat of this topic, maybe there's a new fairy. Is it a
Might
good
be
fairy?
A bad one.
Yeah, is it a good fairy? It's a really good question. We'll kind of debate that. But yes, I always think of the XKCD image, right? Open source is like you have this massive Jenga of blocks, and open source is that one little block at the bottom that if you just pluck it out, the entire thing falls over. It is so true. From an application security side, product security side, I wouldn't say just security side, we have seen so many breaches, attacks, vulnerabilities related to open source code, right? We got like TJ Maxx or TJ Actions.
Well, hold on a second. I know where you're getting at, but that makes it sound like open source is a problem. If I were 5 and I didn't know what you were just saying, makes it sound like open source is an issue and maybe should go away. I disagree with that, and I know you do too. But maybe I'm curious if you could explain that a little bit.
Let me bring it full circle.
Okay.
I'll
back
off. All right, we're halfway there.
We're halfway there, right? So we've had a whole bunch of breaches, right? We've heard of Log4j, right? You've heard of all these major things, and they do often originate from some kind of open source thing. And I think that comes back to that there's a core issue there, right? Companies rely on this, and our company's going in both ways, is kind of what I'm saying. Open source is a critical component. It's a good way for people to develop a solution that is useful amongst a lot of other companies. We have a lot of open source libraries around cryptography. Those ones are published by companies who are well vetted. These libraries are well known, they're well used, they're well understood, well, research dived in, and we rely on them to secure our entire applications and our internet, right? So there's a lot of good because you don't need, like, every company doesn't have to rebuild the same thing over and over, right? Why reinvent the wheel? Why not have something that everybody can utilize? Did I bring it full circle, Blake? Did I bring it? Did I?
Yeah, I think so. I think you did.
Well, any comments, anything that I'd leave on the explanation of kind of what open source is?
I would add one more kind of angle that many people don't think about, but there are certain parts of open source that, in many people's opinion, certain softwares are required to be open source in order for us to trust them. And encryption is kind of one of those examples. It's very difficult to trust that this software is going to keep your data secure if you can't like actually see how that software was made and look at all of the code behind it. I know there's going to be varying opinions on that, but there are certain things that it's like, how do I trust this does what it says it does if we can't see behind the scenes, see what it's actually doing?
Yeah, makes sense.
That's going to create a lot of hot takes, I think, depending who you talk to. Because I mean, I'm working for like SaaS providers, even in having to talk about products in front of customers and what have you. It's just like you're kind of doing the same thing, right? Of like, I built this thing and I'm asking you to buy it, but you know what? I'm not going to tell you how it works because you get the front end and nothing else. So I think it goes both ways. But when we're talking about open source, I really like that because it feeds into this like whole community that exists around open source and builds that trust, and like you can pick it apart and the people who want to do, and you get that extra confidence out of it, right? So it's a wonderful thing.
Interesting. Wonderful.
Cameron's, you're glaring at me right now like I'm in trouble.
Nah, I'm not in trouble. I'm just thinking through what you said. Well, I mean, kind of jumping into the topic, right? What happened? So, do you guys want to take a crack at what happened? I kind of want to hear Kurt summarize it.
You want to hear me summarize? Because I had the least amount of time reading it.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Put you in the hot spot.
So put me on the hot spot. Well, with the FFmpeg thing, what I gather is Google spun up this big bad service where they're using their advanced AI, and they have a thing that essentially pulls in open source software and attacks it. It pokes holes in it, finds vulnerabilities in it, and they end up publishing that out as tickets to the maintainers to say, you have vulnerabilities and you need to fix it. And we're talking about machine speed and machine scale. And on the other side, with the open source software, you have people that are out of the goodness of their heart, or hobbyists, or it's their passion project. They're maintaining it. And so they're getting all of these problems, and Google's demanding that they fix them in short order, which in some cases might be an unreasonable amount of time. And if they don't, they're going to like publish the vulnerability, and it's going to put that project or the software or the maintainers on blast, right? It's not fair that you have this massive entity that is putting its advanced technology in play to find these vulnerabilities, but then they're not helping to fix it.
I think there's a lot that we have to break down on what you just said there.
Yeah, that's why you're here, Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, FFmpeg, I love the name. Very interesting in that probably nobody know what the heck that is, right? It is the foundation to, I believe, video encoding and like streaming, right? Like it's how video is.
I actually use it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's essentially, from my notes, right? It's used everything, anything, any kind of video, audio processing. It's across everything, right? VCL, codecs, Plex. I don't know. It says Google Chrome, Firefox, YouTube processing, and so on. So Google, Netflix, every modern web application or streaming service you're using uses this open source, free to use software that is run and built and created and maintained by volunteers, right? These are passion projects that these guys or these people, right? They work a normal job and then they come home and they work for another couple of 2 hours contributing to this open source project, contributing back. I think they do make a little revenue, but it's not like, you know, we can hire full on staff to run this open source project, right? Um, and as I said, every major company, multi-billions slash, you know, combine them all together, $1 trillion companies rely on this. And this is just one of everything, right? Like everything modern software relies on this. Like it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, well, it has been around, and the volunteers have been maintaining this for a very long time. I mean, I was going to look it up, but I don't have it in front of me. 15 years. Like it's old software, and they've been maintaining it this entire time while watching companies like Netflix make billions of dollars on their software and getting basically nothing back except for maybe some donations. Um, but they keep maintaining it. And this is the part you talked about. The title is open source sustainability. And this is the part that's kind of interesting to me is we have all of these things built on these open source things that are being maintained. And now the companies that have made billions of dollars on their software are coming back and saying, hey, fix these things. If you don't do it in 90 days, we're going to disclose, make you look bad, but not giving them a dime. But they use their software to make billions of dollars for free.
Yeah. It's definitely a complex problem, right? Because at the same time, right, we all should be using secure software.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a good thing. I know I've said this, you know, between you guys, but from my view, a lot of people that I've talked to, maybe these are naive, more entry level people or something, or I'm a little more jaded, but they're like, always open source it, right? Then people can review the code. But I don't know about you, Blake or Kurt. How often do you go view your open source code that you actually are utilizing? I want to say it's 0 to none.
Never.
I have done it a handful of times, but never actually in very much depth.
But for a
It's
security
just not
focus?
feasible.
Like, did you
What's
do it
that?
for a secure with the security lens, or were you doing it more for a functionality or a trying to understand lens?
I was doing it from a security lens in that I didn't want to use a library that was not maintained, that had a bunch of extra dependencies. Oftentimes, I would do it as when I was a software engineer. If I did a lot of JavaScript, and if anybody knows anything about the JavaScript dependencies, it's a disaster. But you'll have two libraries that do basically the same thing, and one will have 3,000 dependencies, and one will have 10. I would do things like that, right? Because the one with the 10 has the smaller footprint, and it's actively maintained. As far as reviewing the code specifically for an input validation vulnerability or something like that, no, because that's not really feasible without dumping a lot of time or using sophisticated tools.
I mean, and that's the thing, right? So I think there's this notion that because you open source something, there'll be security fairies going out there and submitting fixes. But we've seen a kind of an issue over the last couple, I would say over the last year to 2 years, people utilizing open source to get CVE cred. That's a big thing that's happening, right? There's a lot of people, I've heard this in the cybersecurity industry, where they've said, hey, go look online, go look at open source and go try to find CVEs or vulnerabilities and get a CVE under your name, and you can put that on your LinkedIn or you can put it on your resume and find and that gives you some clout. So maybe there are some security fairies, but is that always a good thing? I would say it's debatable. Because a lot of these times, are they going out trying to find real functional vulnerabilities, or are they just trying to nitpick? Right? I could probably go look up at some useful C or C library and just do a grep analysis for like a stir copy, and then submit a thing saying, "Hey, why are you using stir copy? Shouldn't you use stern copy? This is a security issue. Use the secure function, right, or whatever the more secure version it is, or whatever one, right? You could do something like that." Is that actually helping the application at the end of the day?
I don't know. Like sometimes it is,
Dumb.
sometimes it isn't. It really just depends on the quality of it. And I think I want to dig it back to the first part of the story and why this became a story is because FFmpeg has a social media account on X, and they're pretty spicy sometimes.
Oh yeah, they're super spicy.
And I actually appreciate it. I think it's kind of interesting. And so they got kind of spicy with Google and made the claim like, hey, either pay us some money, donate to us, or don't send us this AI generated garbage. They called it CVE slop, right?
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of blew up, right? Because Google didn't publicly say, hey, we've got this vulnerability, we've sent it to them. The FFmpeg set it back, and so it kind of made it spicy. But the reason I want to bring this up, and you're talking about submitting CVEs and everything, with the advent of AI and how good it's getting at many things and also still terrible at a lot of other things, a lot of people are using AI automations to submit what's called CVE slop, which your average person doesn't know what that means, but it's basically submitting vulnerability reports that are complete garbage but sound real.
Yep.
And they're hard for maintainers and actual human to go through and determine if this is an actual vulnerability or not. And FFmpeg probably gets a bunch of these, not from Google. Google's thing, I think, was actually pretty solid. But they probably get a ton of others, and they're probably frustrated with it. They probably get a bunch of CVE vulnerability reports that are just absolute garbage. And so maintainers are getting frustrated. What's going to prevent them from just saying, you know what, I'm out. I'm done. I'm shutting my package down. It's just going to go unmaintained. And then they're not going to do it anymore. And half the things that a lot of us are using on the internet slowly drift into obscurity and can't be used anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something we should talk about is that is happening. There are many maintainers who are like, I'm done, right? There's a lot of popular applications. We've actually even heard where people get, they sort of pseudo malicious, right? Where they just like nuke their library or drop in a bug that fundamentally breaks every application because they're done. I can't remember what that one was called. It's like Fuzzer or something. It was one of those testing ones.
It was a JavaScript fuzzing library
Yeah.
for unit testing or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact name, but like that can totally happen. But we've heard this that people are, these open source, again, as you were saying, sure, maybe they are finding some vulnerabilities, but this is not their first full-time job. This is a voluntarily, most of the time they're not getting paid, so they're coming off work, looking at these submitted bugs, and have to spend 30 minutes, an hour, maybe let's say max like 20 minutes, but that could be 20 minutes per bug. And they only have an hour a day or 2 hours a day to sift through these things. And you're wasting their time when they could be developing new features, improving, better efficiencies, X, Y, Z on these open source things that we rely on for things that don't really matter. And to bring it back to why this thing really blew up, right? This blew up because they submitted a bug on C++ code for a function there's like a stir copy, I believe, on code that is only shipped for like a 1995 like video game format that was only the first 30 frames or something. And by default, this is not compiled in the default compile, or when you compile it and use it, it's not by default in there. So it's not even like relevant.
Like a massive corner case.
Yeah, this is just not needed, right? And they're saying now that they're going to have an open vulnerability. It's like, if that was so much of an issue for you guys, why did you guys submit a fix? Right?
Yeah.
I think they even say that, like, shut up and submit like patch or something. They're like notorious for saying.
Yeah, I think it was like submit a pull request, right?
I think it was much more inappropriate.
I think we have a quote. That's if Google was interested in actually improving the situation against hackers, they'd send her fun patches. In reality, they want to collect CVE scout patches.
Dumb. Yeah, it's a big problem. So I mean, I see it from FFmpeg, right? They're a small team and they're just trying to deliver something that's completely open source. And then from the Google side, right, they're trying to secure the applications or open source software by improving security around that.
Let me stop you right there, though. Like, why is Google actually doing this?
It's a good
And
question.
the way I ask this, I sound like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I promise, guys, I'm not. I'm not. But I do want to say, like, why is Google actually doing this? Are they really doing this out of the goodness of their heart, or is there some sort of financial incentive for them? It could be a combination of things, right? I think it's probably not a big surprise to think that Google has some sort of financial incentive. They're working on this engine to improve whatever, and there's probably going to sell licenses to enterprise customers, right? So they're doing all of this on open source. It's training their model. They're fixing all these bugs. They're doing this thing. It's helpful, or they're finding bugs, finding vulnerabilities. But there's probably going to be this enterprise side of it where they're going to have some sort of an AI-based SaaS scanner. It's probably going to be pretty good, but they're not just doing this out of the goodness of their heart, because they're spending a lot of money on this project. They're probably expecting to get that money back in some way or another.
Well, you go the other way to be like, you're investing all of this and you're leveraging. It's the whole problem with like training AI to people. There's like all these copyright lawsuits and whatever, because you grab all these works and you train the AI and then you're using it and you're making money on it. Well, what about the people that created it? What's in it for them? Or in this case, the maintainers of FFmpeg, like, they're getting nothing but extra cycles they have to invest in their software for these other massive corporations' gains. Like, what's in it for them? Why shouldn't they just shut the project down and say, you know what, figure it out yourself?
It's true.
Like, I'm obviously falling on their side of this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, looking out for the little guy here. Like, they're making the world a better place out of the goodness of their heart, but come on now.
Yeah. I mean, so from what you're saying is essentially Google, I mean, from what I know, Google usually builds a lot of their security tooling in-house. They usually don't utilize a lot of third-party tooling. They usually just build it all themselves. And so you're thinking they're building their own AI. They're using the open source to train it and develop the accuracy, right? How many things did they submit? How many came back as false positive? How many came at that? Tune the engine and keep repeating, as well as they're training probably internally too. But they're saying, well, do you think that maybe, I'm playing devil advocate, maybe somebody internal, right? We hear this all the time. I've said it to my team, hey, if you can find time, look at the open source packages that we use and go try to submit a pull request to upgrade some of the vulnerabilities we know of and see if it gets pushed through so that we're actually contributing back, right? Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're looking at it and being like, hey, we can't really spend much time with humans, right? But we do have this AI, just security SaaS scanner that we're developing. Why don't we turn it on the things that we use so that it's useful for both sides?
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? That being said, they're not like just doing this out of the goodness of their heart, right? There's other things, and that's fine, completely fine. I'm totally okay with financial incentives. I have a job because of financial incentives, right? Like, I'm totally okay with that. I'm down. But I have heard a couple of people saying, hey, they're just providing bug finding for free. That's great. And I'm like, but it's at a certain point, it's maybe not helpful because you're creating the other things. But at the end of the day, honestly, I'm okay with most of what Google is doing here. There's just one aspect that really rubs me wrong, and the aspect of that was the 90-day disclosure window. Yeah. That's the thing that really frustrates me.
Can you break down what that means? Like, what is a 90-day disclosure? What is that? What is all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 90-day disclosure window, and this is kind of industry practice, and I can even talk about how this started because it is a bit interesting. But essentially, if I find a vulnerability in something, but I'm not a black hat hacker, I'm not a bad guy, I'm not actually trying to hack this website, but I want to communicate that to the company in a way that they'll get it fixed. So most companies have a way that you can submit some sort of vulnerability disclosure. But the reason, and then they'll say, in 90 days or 180 days, whatever, I will publicly disclose this vulnerability. And the reason that became kind of a standard is way back in the early days, people would find vulnerabilities, but they didn't want to do something illegal. So they would submit that to a website, or the company Microsoft was one, they would email it to them and say, hey, I found this vulnerability. Sometimes those people would actually get calls from law enforcement because Microsoft or whoever would say, these guys are hacking my stuff. They broke the law. And we have a little bit clearer laws when it comes to those kinds of things now. And so what the standard became was, or let me back up, or Microsoft or these other companies just wouldn't fix them. They would just say, yeah, it's not worth it. And so the way to get these companies to fix them was to say, okay, well, in 90 days, I'm going to publicly disclose this. But if I disclose it right now, that just gives bad hackers, availability to monetize this bug or hack into systems or things. So they have this disclosure window. I'm going to responsibly tell the company, I'm going to show them how this vulnerability works. I'm going to give them time. The incentive for them to be able to get it done is that I will publicly disclose it to the world, in X number of days. And so that's kind of how this came about. That standard never really applied the other way around, where the big companies would tell the small companies, hey, we found this thing. Now you have 90 days or we're going to disclose it. That's not really the point of that. Plus, Google has all of these resources, a lot of resources to find this. They have enough resources to submit a pull request, which is a fix for it, and just submit that pull request alongside this vulnerability disclosure or vulnerability. Yeah, the vulnerability disclosure. And it's like, so you guys have tons and tons and tons of resources compared to the open source maintainers. And then you give them a short time window for this very obscure bug, or you're going to disclose it publicly on your blogs that get read by millions and millions of people. And you didn't even submit like a code fix for it, which you could do because it's open source. That right there, the 90-day window, and not even like attempting to submit a fix for it, is where I feel like Google really went wrong here.
Yeah, I would like to expand. Like, I also feel like that they could have given a way to have a communication window, because some bugs that people find, it may take more than 90 days to fix that. So if you're just giving a blanket, like, this is what you have, end of story, there should have been some part in there like, hey, you can reach out to us, we'll have a conversation, we'll change the timeline, something like that, right? Because there's a lot of vulnerabilities I've seen that it's an architectural change, right? It looks small, but it requires an entire architectural change. That is not a quick fix, right? They still have to maintain and fix other things and get it going. What is the risk, and justify, and work through that, and then build through their solution and then deliver. And that may take longer than 90 days.
They have to test it and not break everything. Like, you could end up, if you break the whole project over one little vulnerability, like, now you're putting, what's the ripple effect, or what's the blast radius? Because so many things depend on it. Like, it's not only impacting these developers that have limited amounts of time to invest in it, it can potentially negatively impact everyone who uses it. So I get it. There is good intent there, right? I agree with Blake. Is where this falls down is like, you have all of these resources. Why don't you just help out? And otherwise, you might have an army of others, corporations and individuals coming at you saying, hey, man, why don't you help out? Instead of just pointing at, like, in leadership, we hate when people just point out problems and say, there's a problem. Like, okay, what are we doing about it? It's the next question every time.
No.
Google's big
Even in
sleep
real
is
life,
the
it's like, look, a problem. Great. Do you want me to fix it, or are you doing something about it?
it's like the intern. Google Big Sleep is the intern, where they come in and they're here for a month and they're like, oh my gosh, I see this problem and this problem and this problem, and then that's it. And they just look at you
Bye.
saying,
And I'm out.
bye. It's like, become more mid-level or senior, Google. Your Big Sleep AI should mature to that point, I think.
Yeah. Or just, they have someone on staff who every time it detects something, it also, somebody goes and submits a PR fix, right, at the same time. Because it wasn't, from what I understood, a lot of findings. I think it was somewhere around 20 findings or something overall. But even then, right, you could have one or two people going out and just submitting PR fixes is good publicity. It's good, showing off that you're finding and fixing things at the same time, doing both sides. So definitely an interesting problem.
Well, didn't people do this to like the person who maintains curl and libcurl, and like that person had to go invest a ton of time going through all of this stuff only to figure out that it was CVE slop. So it's like you burn all of these cycles on what? Creating an argument?
Yeah, I think it was early last year or late last year or this year. There was I can't remember what AI bot that was going around finding vulnerabilities, but it would have a conversation. And I believe there's like this long thread of a developer chatting with a quote unquote person, and like they were like, this is not a vulnerability, blah, blah, blah. And then finally realized, oh, I'm chatting with an AI bot. I'm not even chatting with a human being. Closed this PR and they were furious. So I do remember watching something or listening to something about that. I'd be pretty mad.
Well, and something like that actually reduces security, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're pulled in 10 different directions, you're a developer engineer's attention is not on the things that matter. And so you have all of these other distractions and things. And so stuff like that actually reduces security. And now Google's kind of doing it. I mean, we expect them to do better, to be better, but yeah, they kind of did that. But yeah.
I mean, it comes to a bigger thing, and I want to kind of talk about something slightly different and more of a bigger scope. But OWASP just released its new OWASP Top 10 2025 release candidate, and in there is supply chain supply chain failures. Was it security supply chain failures? I have it memorized and then I lose it every time.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, I already took down all my notes. And, no, I didn't. Haha. Pull up my notes. Software supply chain failures. Perfect. Got it.
Yes.
Number 3. And that one encompasses, they have some interesting lines on their website where they're like, you have to, in your SBOMs include transitive dependencies in there too, right? And so now we're going to have vulnerabilities associated with that. The open source, community is now, I feel like, going to have even more pressure because now we have, first we had outdated and unsupported components in the last one, right? In 2021 OWASP Top 10. And now we have the supply chain failure. And if you look at that from the OSS side, there's going to be a lot more focus on it, right? We've already have a mandate to have SBOMs from the government, right? Every company should be producing SBOMs to have that. I've already have a lot of opinions around SBOMs in general, but those also are going to kind of have, the context, the understanding, but we're going to produce those. Then the question is, why are you using open, vulnerable versions of open source code? I don't know. What's your guys' perspective on the fact that now OSS is just becoming there's more of a spotlight on it. As we started out, there's a lot of vulnerabilities and attacks happening on open source code too, that companies, again, rely on.
So we kind of talked about this earlier, though. It's like if they get enough and they get frustrated enough and they just say, you know what, I'm done, and walk away, like, are we creating a bigger problem potentially in the name of trying to be more secure? Or like, what has to change so that we maintain the balance, and the people who are investing extra hours out of their day to maintain open source software because they truly enjoy working on software, like, how do we give them the incentive so that they're not frustrated and walk away? Because, like, thinking personally, back in my dev days, like, people don't let me touch code anymore. They only let me touch PowerPoint. That's kind of a running joke. But back in my dev days, if someone did that to me and just kept piling on, I'd be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm out. See you later. Figure it out yourself.
Yeah, the volunteer burnout and essentially brain drain and talent drain that'll happen to OSS as this proliferates, and especially at the speed that AI can deliver. Right, if this thing gets turned on, and I bet Google uses a ton of open source code, and then they just turn this on and it starts going everywhere. Right, what happens when these bots are like Microsoft creates their own one, and then they turn it on in GitHub, and then every GitHub, maybe they say like above, a certain amount of stars or usage, or they look at the top like 500 used packages in general and then turn something against that. Sure, they're making it secure, but are they going to do the same thing where they just release vulnerabilities and no fixes, and now we have a proliferation of vulnerabilities everywhere?
I have a tangent. And I promise this is related, that I'm gonna go on and circle back to this.
Are we
but
getting Blake's first hot take?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm ready to get
I
on
don't
this
know.
journey. I gotta get comfy,
Okay,
stretch
it's
out.
gonna
ready.
be a
Take me
journey.
there. All right, take me.
When I was in college, I read a book called Freakonomics. It's very popular, but it's kind of old. But it introduced two concepts to me that I find very fascinating. I think they apply a lot to cybersecurity. The first concept is incentives, right? If we understand the incentives on why a company or a person, what incentives they have, we can reasonably predict what sort of reasonable choices or behaviors they might have. And then the second one is unintended consequences. Oftentimes, no matter what we do, given a large enough population, we will have some sort of consequence that is the opposite of the intended effect. And so I want to talk about unintended consequences first. We've kind of been, skirting around this, but essentially, if Google says, "Hey, we want to make security or open source libraries more secure, we're going to turn our AI on this, find these vulnerabilities, and submit them to all of these people. It's going to be amazing." The unintended consequence could be that maintainers, and some are doing this, they're just saying, "You know what? I don't have enough time to deal with this. I can't put all this stuff together. They're going to disclose these vulnerabilities anyway. I got a life to live. I was enjoying this, and now I'm not enjoying this. So I'm out." And they'll stop maintaining it. Is Google going to pick up the maintenance of that? Or are they just going to let it go and continue to be unmaintained and drift into vulnerability city? I don't know. That is an unintended consequence of what they're trying to do.
Well,
I think. Go
I
ahead.
want to pause you right
Go
there.
ahead.
What happens if Google does maintain it? I could foresee a future where they clone it and bring it internal.
Yeah.
Right.
They might already be doing that, but then the rest
Either
of the
that
world doesn't
or-
benefit from that. And so now are we less secure or more secure as a whole?
So, well, also less
Either that or monetize
productive,
it.
right? Less productive, right? Because as a society, we're using all this open source code. And why do what's the core reason we use open source code? So that we don't have to maintain and reinvent the wheel internally. It allows companies to be faster, more efficient, and deliver features quicker. There's a level of, I would say, risk or assumption that happens, right? We take on the burden of saying, hey, or the risk that, hey, I'm going to use this open source code so that I can deliver my product faster.
I mean, one of the
absolutely.
things, like, as we all learn to build software, they always harp on like be modular and like software reuse and whatever, like don't reinvent the wheel. And so this is open source, literally helps you do that everywhere around the world, whether you're building something for home use or building it for a big bad corporate application that you're going to make billions of dollars on. It's why would I reinvent the wheel or build it internally if it already exists? And then you kind of take it for granted, right? And that's what we're talking about is all these wonderful people out in the world in this community are building and maintaining this software. They're not getting anything out of it other than maybe some recognition. And then others are turning around and making tons of money on it. And we even see, I think we talked to someone this week who talked about like, there are wonderful tools that are often, they start as open source and then an investor swoops in or a company swoops in and like basically buys it and turns it into a product. And now you got to pay for it.
Yeah. So I have a potential solution.
Let's hear it.
I think I'm going to fix everybody's problems.
Sweet.
The cure-all.
The cure-all, right?
Blake is the cure.
Okay, so when I talk about incentives, remember the 90-day disclosure window, I talked about it as an incentive to get the big businesses to actually fix their vulnerabilities from someone that's a small person that has no leverage there. So they have an incentive for it to not be publicly announced before they have patched it. If we have like a flip of that incentive and we actually say, okay, Google gives them this bug vulnerability, and instead of using a disclosure window, you give them a financial incentive. You say, hey, if this is patched in the next, in the next 30 days, you get $500 or $1,000. If it's 90 days, you get, half that or whatever. Give them some sort of financial incentive to do this. Instead of having the incentive of we're going to name and shame publicly on these critical libraries that are used all over, give them a small financial incentive. And honestly, for a lot of these open source repos, many of them don't want a ton of financial incentive. So a few $1,000s here or there would make them very happy with what they're doing, and Google would be pitching in, and they wouldn't feel so screwed by this multi-billion-dollar company, and they would actually feel like, okay, we do have a partnership. We are working together on this, and we're working to make things better. And from Google, that's not a big thing. I know there's tens of thousands of libraries. I don't have to do on all of them or whatever, but FFmpeg, Google uses it extensively. They have to. All of these big companies do. And we definitely don't want that to go round. But we could have some sort of financial, they could come up with some sort of financial way they could budget some money and do a flip the incentive there and give them a financial incentive to get it done in X number of days.
Yeah. I mean,
They just
I
fix
think
everything?
as
They
a
fixed
collect,
everything, didn't they?
I don't know, because they're only going to fix right. They're only going to focus on the stuff they use, right? And so there's so much more open source beyond probably what they use. That's the assumption is, I think right there is that they use everything. I don't think they use everything. So beyond that, the next step, right, for at least how I see it, is that every company should contribute back. If you use something, why don't you go in and have some kind of, kind of an internal quota once a month? A team of 5, one person contributes to an open source package that they need, right? Maybe they go in and upgrade a library or a transitive dependency or, right, do something along those lines to help just give back a little. And everybody does a little here and there, things are going to get a lot better. Or just, maybe the government gives, $1 billion to some kind of, company, and their whole job is just finding vulnerabilities in open source and fixing them. That'd be cool.
Go start that company.
Yeah. That'd be a cool one. I mean, there's an incentive, right? Because as you secure the ecosystem, you secure your, country's applications, which, has a ripple effect of securing everything, makes things a little better. I don't know.
I mean, what's the unintended consequence? Someone's going to weaponize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. Man, we just saw, like this week, this story is breaking, like AI has been weaponized. Yeah. It's the first major occurrence of that. Yeah. So it's like, we built this awesome thing, but bad guys got it too.
It's very true. So, well, where do you guys want to take it from here?
Oh boy.
The hard question.
Oh boy. Oh yeah. I mean, we already fixed everything. People just need to listen to what we said. Our 2 ideas, that's it. Everyone just needs to do that and we'll be safe and secure.
I got nothing to add to that. So this is Cameron and Blake show now.
No, I was gonna talk about it. I mean, this specific bug, whatever, but vulnerability disclosure as a whole is pretty interesting. Mostly because there are different facets to it. And one facet we haven't talked about is our dark markets where people sell vulnerabilities. That exists out there. And there is a financial incentive. For example, I can't, this is just a hypothetical example. If I found a 0-day vulnerability, and that means that a vulnerability that no one knows about yet, that would allow someone to remotely access some server software or something like that, on the dark web, that could sell for several $100,000. If I disclose that vulnerability and gave them a 90-day window, I might just get some street cred. Or there's bug bounty programs and things where you could make a few $1,000s or even a little bit more. But there's this other side of things, and I think most security researchers don't do the dark web thing. Most people, I think, are trying to do the right thing. But there are these other incentives out there. There are these criminal elements out there for vulnerability disclosure. And it never really gets talked a whole lot about in a general kind of a way, but it exists. It's there. It's a thing. There's different facets to this in software security.
It's true. That is an interesting perspective to bring up around that there's other less ethical financial incentives that you can take when you find these things. And it is definitely something that you see out there. You hear people all the time, or nation states supposedly going on the dark market, buying all of these, 0 days, and then keeping them for themselves, right? And leveraging them for when they need to leverage against, maybe other nation state actors or certain scenarios, right? I think I was reading something, or there's a running like myth or rumor or legend that, the nation states are just sitting on thousands of 0 days that, they keep locked and loaded for any kind of scenario that they may need to execute, rather than securing the ecosystem and working with the partners to secure those things. I don't know. The other side to that is, I wonder, do you think there's like major companies, like, these big companies buying those same 0 days or going out and searching for them and then fixing them themselves? It's an interesting perspective. Like, are they doing
I've
some
never
kind
actually
of
thought about that.
dark market threat intelligence to see? I know, because we all hear about it all the time, right? I hear all kinds of vendors like, we go in the dark web and we securely find your threat intelligence that's, going, what attackers are coming against you specifically in these things, right? But I do some of them think some of them do look for like vulnerabilities or 0 days or things that are known or talked about your company. I would assume that markets and companies, right, if you have a big enough budget, you would probably have some people on your team threat searching for 0 days that are associated with your company, and that you would want to buy or get your hands on those so you can fix them. Makes sense.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now you're making me
Because
wonder if these services already exist and like you could go like pay someone to do that for you.
I don't know. Because I start thinking about the incentives, right? You don't know what the vulnerability is until you buy it. So why not just make up a whole bunch of fake vulnerabilities on the dark web, and companies are
Right.
buying these things and they're getting nothing.
You lose your street cred. I don't know.
I mean, it's all happening on the dark web. There's no street cred. It's just like fake stuff, and everyone's
You don't
scamming
want
everyone
people
there.
to know who you are
Yeah.
there.
I don't know.
Everyone's
That's
just trying to
interesting.
get the money.
I've
or
never
whatever
thought about
floats their
companies
boat.
buying their own vulnerabilities. That's interesting.
Yeah, but it could be a cost versus
It could be.
loss ratio, right? That
Mhm.
we have a budget of XYZ, and if we lose 70% of that budget, but 30% of the budget we find actual actionable stuff, that's an acceptable ratio, right? I think that is something you could cost average to
The
figure
risk
out.
and reward.
Yeah, the risk and
problem.
reward. Yeah.
Because if someone finds that 0 day or buys it and then exploits it, now you've got the reputational damage and the fallout. Like that's much more expensive than if you just went and bought the stupid thing and fixed it yourself.
Yep.
Now I really wonder if this happens.
I've
Rob?
never thought to even look that up. It's definitely going to be something I'll be looking up soon.
All right. Well, let's circle
Well,
back.
I
to the
think
main-
we have a suspect if we find it. So Cameron.
Whoa. Whoa. Just because I thought of it doesn't mean I do anything. All right. But I mean, my
I don't
Lambo,
know.
I don't know how I got my Lambo.
Yeah. It's like I saw it parked in the garage.
Don't worry.
Like
about
you're
it.
holding out on me, man.
Don't worry about it. Just look
His
over
dark
there.
web username is Mr. Coffee Chaos and
Mr.
not ProdSec.
Not I think we're hitting the end here. So, any last comments, concerns, any last views, anything you guys want to bring up around this? I know this is one of our more ad hoc videos where we kind of wanted to talk about something that's relevant and happening right now, rather than something that's more of a concept driven that we normally do. But yeah, anything else you guys want to bring up?
I actually have one other just tiny little point that I think Google could do that could actually impress me and impress many others. It would be with your AI vulnerability reports, also do like a risk analysis, what's like or reachability analysis. Like, how would you do this, and provide that in the report as well? Maybe do some high level risk scoring and include that in there, as well as do an automated pull request. Do that with your AI that actually works. Now you're starting to impress me. Because a lot of the automated AI PRs, it's hit or miss if they're going to work or not. But if you can consistently prove on open source projects that your AI can make good automated pull requests to fix the code, and it actually fix it really easily, that's impressive. So I don't know. I think those are a couple of things they could add on there. Maybe they're working on those things. I would be surprised if they're not. But that would be very impressive if they started doing that with their automations.
All right.
I don't even know how to follow that, man. I agree. I think back, I had a neighbor that used to work for Google. I don't think he does anymore, but if he did, I was going to go ask him, like, hey, can you go make the suggestion?
Awesome.
Well, I'll bring us out on this one. I definitely think that open source is a complex and there's no, as much as we've said here, I don't think there's a cure-all to the solution.
Nope.
From a vulnerability side, from a usability side, it has always been something that has been a problem that we have talked about in the cybersecurity and the application security, product security, DevSecOps security, whatever you want to say. It has been a problem. It has been something that no one solution or at least thing can be done. It's a collective problem that as a collective we need to come together and drive some kind of solution via the many different ways. I think if, as long as we're all trying in our own way, we'll slowly march towards a closer thing. But it should be known that, open source is really run by volunteers. And a lot of the stuff that we rely on for everything that we rely on in terms of our day to day, trying to have you have a kid who's screaming and you put your tablet in front of them, that's probably using FFmpeg when they're watching Bluey or something, right? So it's definitely an interesting thing, and we should think about that. I'm sure there's many ways that if you're looking to contribute and give back, both monetarily or go out there, for any person who's looking to, rather than find CVE cred, I would say go out and maybe get some pull request cred and help some maintainers out, right? Maybe help them upgrade some libraries, fix some issues. But that is a whole nother problem. You can probably watch a billion other podcasts. Getting your pull request, even if it's well done or XYZ done or X, thing, that can also be another problem. I don't know, we could jump into that, and just contributing to open source can be there's a high bar sometimes because there's a lot of people out there and you have to weigh the risk of what you're accepting. We could talk about, was it XC Utils, where that person looked, if you haven't heard about that one, go research that one. It was a very interesting attack vector. We're starting to see maybe APT, so advanced persistent threats, like nation state level kind of attack vectors where they look like valid contributors and they're not. So
You end up with a backdoor.
yeah, sweet backdoor. So, well, thanks again, Blake, for joining us. I really appreciate it. I loved your thought process, and I really think you rounded us out in this kind of deep dive conversation. Any last things?
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on. I want to get a shirt that says, how's my pull request cred? Because I think that is one of the best catchphrases you've ever come up with. It's perfect. Pull request cred. It's a little bit hard to say, but it needs to be a thing.
Yeah. So I will, on this episode, put your address underneath it so that somebody can send that to you.
I can send it.
You're done.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Anytime.
I
Your
love
phone
it.
number, date of birth, your mother's social, and maiden name. I'll get you there. No problem, dude. I got you.
Good. Good.
Cameron's on the dark web again.
Oh boy,
Mr.
Coffee Chaos and not ProdSec.
Kurt, I appreciate you as always. Thanks for coming and drawing beautiful plane diagrams. That's gonna be the running joke now. Love it.
I'll send you one on Monday. I'm done for the week.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming to Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec. Subscribe, smash the smash, follow, comment.
Whatever the button says.
Yeah, you can, I don't know, you can find Blake somewhere on LinkedIn, and you can come comment on us on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I'd love to hear your opinions. And thank you, and take care. And this is Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec again.